Good morning. First of all, a big thank you to you, Annemarie, and to the Engage project for inviting me here to this conference, to Finland. I have to admit I was one of those who didn't show up the hands when there was the question if I'm the first time in Finland, because I like the Nordics. I'm one of those Austrian guys who not always drive to the south, but I already spent several holidays in the Tampere region and in the region of Tornio-Haparanda. So I really like this country, and I'm really happy that I'm here today to talk about something that you all know, fiber to the home. And it's a bit strange for me because normally I have to convince people that fiber is important. And I learned from Annemarie and from the work you're doing, you're already convinced. So you're one of those who wants to know how can we push forward these topics. And so I really feel at home in a way that we should partner, because we all have the same goal. We want to get fiber to the home as fast as possible to the European citizens, and that's a real important objective. I have to admit there's a second reason why I feel at home, and this is I myself have my roots in rural development, and I'm living in a rural area, so that is something where I completely feel and I fight for many years, especially for rural areas. And a last thing why I feel at home, and that's maybe something, there are always some people, not always, but some people say, Hartwig, why are you really doing this mad job of trying to convince these European politicians to get fiber accelerated? And my answer is because I really believe in it. I want to get a fiber connection also to my home in my rural area, and so I really believe that this will make a big difference. And that's important, and that's why I'm really happy that I'm here today. And I want, before I start here, really underline one thing, that statement that was made at the beginning. Yes, it is extremely important that all of us stand up and go to the decision makers, not just in our region, go to decision makers on a national level, go to decision makers on a European level, and talk to them and say, we want fiber, we want super high-speed broadband everywhere in Europe. And the others are also doing it. And here I just want to make one experiment. I don't know if it works, but just because we're in Finland, I would like to know who of you has already a fiber connection at home? Wow, that's a great number. Okay, who of you could have a fiber connection but has not subscribed to it? 1, 2. Okay, you know what this means? 98% of the people who can have a fiber connection subscribe to it, and that could be a message to Brussels, because they always only hear there is no demand for fiber at the end. That's how lobbying is working. As long as you make the statistics yourself, you can get out of it whatever you want, because I think this is the important thing. If people can get fiber, they subscribe to it. And I agree with you, Annemarie, it's not something that is done in 1 week, in 2 weeks, or in 1 year or 2 years, but it is something where you can do it over a few years. And that's something we need to keep in mind. Okay, maybe just a few words, because I said we could partner about the organization itself. The FTTH Council Europe is an industry organization with today 150 members, and our objective, I don't read it because I'm sure you know it, is to accelerate the fiber deployments in Europe. We are a non-profit organization, and there is one important thing. We only have the industry side, the supplier side in our membership. That means starting from planning companies, cable manufacturers, connectivity companies, to the big names like Alcatel-Lucent, Cisco, all of these. But we do not have operators in our organization, and we do not allow operators in the organization. And there is an easy reason for this one, because we don't want to have all these political agendas, especially of the big operators, in the back of us. So we are really independent in the way that we say, for us, it's really fiber, and we do not care who is building the fiber, if it is a municipality, a utility company, a cable operator, an incumbent, an altnet, it is just important that the high-speed network is deployed. And we also do once a year a big event, a conference. Next year we will do it in Stockholm, and I would really like to invite all of you. Yes, Mr. Christa Mattsson is one of those who were pushing for it. You will receive afterwards during the program. But for us, it's not a Swedish conference. For us, it's a Nordic conference. We want to showcase what's happening here in the Nordics. And I not only show this slide because I want to make an advertisement. There's another reason for it, and we can discuss it afterwards, but I brought something with me. I would like to invite the Engage project to come to this conference and to have a booth or a display to show what you're doing to an audience of 3,000 people from all over Europe, so that you can really show what you're doing. And also something we can discuss, we can also do a workshop together if you want. So it would be wonderful if we as an FTTH Council could give you a real stage to give the voice together towards the stakeholders to say how important this is. If you talk about the importance of fiber, then we first need always to look at the market. And the FTTH Council is doing a very detailed market panorama on the fiber and broadband market. And we are doing it, this is also important, together with our sister organizations. So we have 5 fiber-to-the-home councils worldwide that cover the global market and that have a look at market statistics. And I think some of you know these statistics, but there is always one thing to keep in mind behind it. Our statistics are the only ones where we don't compare apples with pears by just taking some official regulator statistics. We do our own market research. And this market research is based on our own definitions. So we have very clear definitions. What is fiber to the home? What is fiber to the building? And what is outside of these definitions? So fiber to the curb, fiber to the last amplifier. And therefore, I always have to say our numbers sometimes are different to the numbers you see from official regulators, national statistics, because we really keep them according to our definitions. And that's the only way how you can make a global comparison at the end, because otherwise, of course, every country and every region counts in a different way. For those of you who love statistics, I will stay here the whole day. I can discuss with you half an hour how Fiber in the Netherlands differently counts fiber to the homes connected than we do, and then you get a bit of a feeling how important this alignment is. What you see here is, by the end of 2012, the global fiber to the home market is, not so surprisingly, dominated by Asia. Asian Pacific countries, South Korea and Japan have done their job already, so they are they finished more or less their fiber rollouts. They're just connecting the people now, and you see also that the North American market, which is mainly the US market, got a new push, especially now not only with Verizon but also with regional networks, having more than 11 million homes connected. You see even Russia, and that's the 8.6 million homes. Russia has already more than 8 million homes connected. I mean, they are doing a huge investment project. Middle East, the MENA region, is progressing well. Of course, they have not so many households there, so the number is a bit lower. And compared to this, Europe is still lagging behind. So we are just having a bit more than 2% of the households connected to fiber. What you see here is the subscribers. That means those people who have a fiber connection and have subscribed to it already. You can go more into detail on the European side, and here I always, if I'm in the Nordics, I like this, the fact that all the Nordic countries are in the list. So Sweden is there, Norway is there. Unfortunately, Finland is a bit down on this list, but I really hope that this will come up very soon. But still, if you compare it to other countries, Finland is really doing well, and I think what is important, maybe you cannot read it here, but you will get all the presentation afterwards. You will miss some countries in here that normally lead such rankings. You will miss Germany in here. You will miss the UK in here. So these big countries even did not reach the threshold of connecting 1% of their households to fiber connections. So this is really a big challenge and a big chance for the smaller countries and the more innovative countries to move forward. As you can see, we also make a distinction between fiber to the home and fiber to the building, so we are very strict on this one, so that we can really make here a big difference. One message here, because I know that I'm in the country of mobile networks. I don't want to mention too much about a company called Nokia, but of course, with this company, you are a mobile country, and mobile networks is something we love. So the FTTH Council, and this is a message I always need to give, the FTTH Council is not against mobile networks. We see them as a complementary technology. What we don't believe is that a mobile network can replace a wired network. It's the other way around. Mobile networks will need a lot of fiber. There's just this recent OECD report that even comes finally to the same conclusion. And I can only say one thing. Those politicians who think they can do a quick and dirty solution by putting some LTE base stations into a municipality and then say, wow, this municipality has 100 megabit, make a mistake. And I can tell you from Germany, which was a front runner on this one, they already have a big problem with this solution. Because yes, the base station is 100 megabit. And as soon as one household is subscribed to it, he's happy. But fortunately, normally in a municipality, there is a bit more than one household. And if on the next day 40, 50 households subscribe to it, I don't need to make the calculation, you can do it yourself. You end up with a speed that is even much lower. And of course you can try to go to the neighbor and say, look, I'm surfing in the internet from 6 to 7 and you surf from 7 to 8, and so we each get 100 megabit for an hour a day, but this is not the way you can solve it. We believe this is really complementary. And if you want to build a good fiber network, a good mobile network, LTE network, you need to get fiber more or less everywhere. And here, if you look at our global statistics, you will find one country that might be surprising, it's Turkey. And one of the reasons why Turkey is doing, not here because it's European, but on a global one, why Turkey is in our global ranking is that Turkcell, the mobile operator, started to plan their LTE network in the big cities like Istanbul and realized, okay, if we do it in a good way, then we have so much fiber in the streets that we also can connect homes. And so they founded a subsidiary called Super Online, and that's one of the biggest, or in the meantime, the biggest fiber to the home supplier in Turkey at the moment, because they just used the network in two ways. And that's also something to think about. So you can also turn it the other way around. If a fiber network is built somewhere, it's quite easy that you have LTE connections afterwards. So, another thing that you should not forget is we have this digital agenda, and we have a lot of discussions going on now in this week and the next days on the digital single market proposal of Commissioner Kroes that will come up very soon. But the basis for everything is the digital agenda of Europe. And if we talk about this one in our ICT groups, broadband groups, we always talk about the broadband targets. And what is forgotten very often is the digital agenda is much more. You have an addition of 7 more targets in the digital agenda, starting from the single market, over the benefits for society, all these research and innovation topics. But to get all these implemented, you will need fiber, you will need broadband. And that's the basis for the development of Europe in the next 8 to 10 years. And on the regional development side, I was really surprised when the broadband targets were published 3 years ago, that there wasn't a huge cry or shout from the regions. Because these broadband targets say, by 2020, 50% of the households use 100 megabit or more. Sounds good. And all of the European households have at least 30 megabit connections available. If you think about this, and if you think how politicians see today, this is a problem for regions. Because you create the feeling, okay, if you want to get these targets, it's 30 megabit is enough for the regions. 30 megabit is enough for Ostrobothnia, 30 megabit is enough for Santarém, 35 megabit is enough for the rural areas in Bavaria. And if you think about this, then it means at the end that these regions will have a big disadvantage, because they will have a slower connection than the big cities. And the next step, if you just think logically, and if you look, I believe many of you already have kids, grown-up kids, small kids. I myself have 2 kids. I know that they will not be happy with 30 megabits in 8 years, and if they can then make a decision where to go, they will go away from my small city, my municipality, and will go to Vienna, because there you get the fast connection. And then we all know what happens. If the young people go away, then the elder one stays, the region dies, of course employment goes back, there are no new jobs, and the rest we know from many regions in Europe. So I believe if we really want to have a Europe of prosperous regions, and that's what I personally feel, then there needs to be a real strong decision that everyone in Europe needs to have these 100 megabits, no matter where this household or this person is, because otherwise we will end up in a Europe of megacities. And here I really bring it, that's not the FTTH Council, that's then a political decision, but really this is a decision that our politicians need to make. Do we want to have a Europe of prosperous regions? Then we need broadband there. Or do we want to have a Europe of megacities and the regions will die? And for me, it's important because I fully understand we cannot build a highway in each single region and each single municipality. We cannot build a high-speed train to each municipality in Europe. But we can build a fiber to the home high-speed connection to each single municipality and each single household in Europe. And I can even answer the question about the costs, because we calculated it. It would be an investment of 202 billion euros if we would start from scratch today, which means in reality it's even lower. And this sounds like a huge investment, but compared to the projects that goes into the 1,000 billions for streets and railways, this is affordable. And this is something, if we start now, if we make the right decisions, we can move on. And why should we do this? And here, I want to invite you, I give you just some examples. I want to invite you, we can join our forces. Have a look at our website. We have a lot of studies, we have a lot of material available that shows how you can get benefit out of fiber. And here, I think this is also something we should, especially we as technicians, should not forget. Fiber is not just fast internet, it's much more. It's a huge opportunity for new services, for new applications. And like you have, because there was this link to the map back there with the best practice examples. The interesting thing is, if you go on our website, you find a very similar map with a lot of case studies, best practice studies on fiber network, including, by the way, because I saw Frinsglas here, Ostrobothnia region, so we already have a case study also of this region on our website. So here, it's making use of these kind of opportunities. There are studies from the OECD, from Ericsson, from a lot of other companies that show a direct connection between available bandwidth and economic growth. And every kind of additional megabit available to the households means an additional growth in the economy. And this is something, especially in a time where people talk about downturn and we have such big problems, this is something where we should really keep in mind on the political agenda. It's not just to get 100 megabit for a fast internet connection, it's much more. And with economic growth, you normally get also the opportunity for new jobs, new chances in the region, in the network. And of course, and that's what I have to say some political parties like, the first thing you create jobs is by just building this network, because you need a lot of construction work to be done. But the second one is that if you give the economy the opportunity to make use of these high-speed networks, then you can really create a lot of innovative jobs and a lot of innovative things. And just to give you two examples, sorry they're Swedish, I know this Finnish-Swedish thing, it's like Austrian and Germany. I'm Austrian, so I feel like Finland sometimes. So I hope the Swedish people don't kill me now. There is, for example, always this, okay, the internet brands, they're all in the US, at Google, Microsoft, YouTube. It's true. And just a few internet brands that were originated in Europe, and the two normally that come in mind is Skype and Spotify, they were originally developed in a country that has a lot of fiber connections. Sweden. Could be a coincidence? I don't think so, because you start thinking differently, and I know that some of you who have a fiber connection already use this connection in a way where I would love to do it, and if you give this opportunity to the people, they will just make use of it. And another thing, I just learned this year when we prepared the Stockholm conference. I did not know how many gaming development studios have their offices and their teams in the Nordics, in Sweden, and in Finland and Norway. And if you ask the people, they say yes, because we want to do online gaming, we want to program our own games, and then there's even some special characters that program something like Minecraft. But these are people that just make use of the opportunities they have. And just yesterday, I mean this was wireless, but just yesterday I was sitting in the train over here and I had a musician sitting beside me with a small keyboard and a laptop connected to the internet, and he was composing something because I asked him, and he said yes, and he's immediately transferring it to his friend who is adding the drums on the other side, and when he comes home they can play together the whole thing. And I thought, wow, I mean in Austria I couldn't do it, or in Belgium, because there I don't have an internet connection to the train. But there, they really make creative use of this, and that's something we should not forget. And the same thing, we are talking about the environmental impact. If you use internet connections, broadband wisely, you can even reduce travel. Today, I know it myself because we are working on a European scale. We do a lot of phone conferences, and these phone conferences are nice, but they have their limitations because you don't see it, someone else, you cannot really share something, you cannot show something to your partner. But every time we try to do video conferencing with more than 2 connections, we have a broadband problem, and the broadband problem is always the upload speed. And here, if you can really do a good conversation over video conferencing, you could save a lot of travels. Still, we will meet together. I mean, I really love to have a beer or a coffee or a wine with other people. But on the day-to-day work, you can really reduce travel. And it's the same for teleworking. Teleworking does not immediately mean that you are just only sitting at home, because you need social contacts. But teleworking, for me, also means if you're living in the suburban areas of a city, just working the first 3 hours of the day from home, and then going to the office, just avoiding this morning traffic jam where everyone who's living in the city is really have a problem every day. And of course, if you live far outside and you have to commute, it's a difference if you have to leave your family on Monday, coming back on Friday, not seeing it for the whole week, or if you leave your family on Tuesday, coming back on Thursday, because you work Monday and Friday from home. And these are things that can be enabled by broadband. Or, the other way around, if you don't have fiber available, it doesn't work. I have a neighbor, myself, who I'm living 150 kilometers away from Vienna, and this neighbor had to commute every day, and then he got a DSL connection beginning of 2000, and he could work from home for 2 days a week, and so he was really happy. But then one day, because of course the requirements grew up, I can even say the company at Siemens said, sorry, now it's because he's a programmer, it's too late, too slow, you cannot work from home anymore. And then, because he was now close to 50, he said, I cannot commute anymore every day, it's not good for my health, for my back. And so he had to quit the job and look for something else. And he was lucky, but he nearly has chosen the option to leave the region and to go back to live in Vienna because he didn't find anything else in our region at the beginning. And that's something, it's one case that we see, but that is the cases that make the big number of having a region prosperous or not. And finally, as I say, bridging the digital divide, it's important to have the regions connected, but finally what I think is also important is a typical European problem. People in Asia and in many other South America don't understand this problem, but we Europeans need to face it. We have an aging population, and to take care of this aging population, broadband can help a lot, because with this nice word of ambient assisted living, these opportunities to give elderly people the chance to live on their own at home longer before they come in special homes or even in hospital, means quality of life for them, and it means a lot of cost savings for the healthcare system. And here in the Nordics, I don't know if you know the giraffe. If not, then please Google it. It's called Giraffe. It's a robot that is designed to help elderly people at home. So it's a robot that is driving around. It's controlled over the internet, of course broadband, because there's a video screen on it. And so the nurse, for example, can help the elderly people in the morning to take the right pills and to remind them if they forgot something. They can even help in the day-to-day working if they have problems to switch on the coffee machine, or small things that I have always to say, we as quite young people don't understand this, but for elderly people that's challenges. And if they get help, then it's great. And the good news is, it's not just the nurse, it's also the family members doing the communications through this one. And now the typical people who criticize this would say, yeah, of course, but then the family is no longer coming to these elderly people because they just make video conferences. It's on the contrary, because for the grandchildren, a video conference, even if they're technical advanced, cannot replace a hug from the grandparents. So they still do the same social contacts, but in addition to this, these elderly people are not the whole week or the whole day alone, but have conversations. And if you ever saw how this works, then you really get a good feeling. And there's a lot of other applications that you can use. And those of you who might come to Stockholm to the conference, I can tell you, we have built up, we call it the world of applications, which is a big dome where we have exactly those applications demonstrated. So you can see how these things work and what kind of impact they have. And the good thing is, the moment we can show decision makers these applications and the impact, they understand. They don't understand if we talk about 100 megabit, but they understand if they see, wow, that has a strong effect. And with this, I want just to conclude in a very easy way. I and the FTTH Council believes that FTTH is more than just fast internet. It's the infrastructure of the 21st century, and it's the infrastructure for a prosperous and successful Europe. And let's work together to get it as fast as possible. Thank you.